The Strain episode 11, The Third Rail. I definitely enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really good. It had like all the separate stories. There are about three little stories in this episode. I thought all of them were really good. Two characters, of course, like two of the other stories, dealt with some really crazy stuff, and the two characters were, of course, F's son and the guy who ran away from prison. I can't remember his name because I don't think they've actually said his name for like 8 episodes, and I can't really remember what his name was or what the German guy called him because for some reason I can't think of his name right now. But both of them had some crappy situations. F's son had a crappy one where his was sort of a normal crappy situation. Like that's something that happens in real life. Like people have mental issues, and so he's this little kid who is trapped with Nora's mother. I won't say trapped, but he's with Nora's mother, and he kind of has to figure out how do I kind of be the adult here. Even though I'm much younger than this woman, I think like I'm horrible at guessing kids' ages, but I would say he's like 8 to 10. I believe I'm a kid too, but he's in this crappy situation with her, and her memories like jumping around. And honestly, I thought at one point when she was like asking for the ashtray and stuff, I really thought she was gonna like hit him or something because she was like freaking out, and I really thought she was just gonna like attack him or something. But it was just really interesting because that moment, like I said, it's a kind of a real life thing, and I thought even as an adult that would be something difficult to deal with, and it would of course be a bit easier because you'd be older, and so you could be stern regardless of whether or not you're younger. But as a very young kid who really hasn't done anything in life and he's just a little kid, it's hard to kind of have that stern moment. So of course he goes out to actually get these cigarettes, and it's not too bad because it's during the day, so of course he couldn't really get eaten except for or bit I should say, except for what happened in this episode if he goes into a random dark place. But I probably would have done the same thing. I mean, I might have been super stern, but then again, if I knew where to go, or like, if I lived in New York, I remotely knew where a store might be, although you could probably just go in one direction, you'll be fine. But, it would be fairly simple. You find the cigarettes, you get them, you head back, and you help her, and it would probably be really easy for someone like me, because, I'm 21, I can go out and do stuff like that. It would be fairly simple to just walk somewhere by myself. But he's, like I said, an 8 to 10 year old kid, and he went from like a crappy situation to have to trying to help her. But I enjoyed the storyline, and like the one thing that I thought was really weird was when the two people came into like the grocery store to like ransack the place. He like took off for the back. Once again, not a kid, but I don't know. I was thinking like for me personally, I wouldn't really just like run like I'm getting some cigarettes. Granted, you never really know people, in that type of situation, especially people can go crazy over like a pencil. Who knows what people are gonna try to take? So it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it's like you could have just, been there and be like, yeah, I'm taking these cigarettes and I'm gone. But I enjoyed his storyline. Of course, he dealt with the infamous cracked iPhone, which I just, for some reason, I thought that was really funny. Like, oh, my iPhone screen cracked, because I know a ton of people that do that. So I thought that was just really, really funny to me. And then, the two people die, and of course, he runs into the guy who ran away from prison, who had an even crappier episode. Like, the last thing that happened was he lost his cousin who got bit, and then this episode, he finds his brother and his mother both turned into monsters. And that just really sucked. Like, I was like, man, his character had the crappiest part of this episode, and he has no one now, so it's just him, walking around looking cool with an axe and just like killing monsters. When they ran across each other, I thought it was really cool, and I thought that they were going to use that as a way to bring him into like the main group, of course, because he would like end up protecting F's son, and then they would just kind of band together. But they just had their moment in passing, so it'll be cool when they actually do come across each other again, because I feel like they have to, because there are no other main characters really left outside of the hacker, and I can't even remember what happened to her. She left and went somewhere, but they're like the only two that aren't with the main group anymore. So they're the only two that can really run into each other. But I thought that was pretty cool, and like I said, his story was just like really messed up. Like, he came home, he had to kill his brother, and then he had to kill his mother, and also he had a pretty dumb moment too when he was like putting his clothes on and all that stuff, and had like the bag, and he just left the door wide open where his like mother was turning into a monster, and she's just right behind him. if she like shot the tendril out before he turned around, he would have been dead too. So I thought that was kind of dumb, but he's gonna be out doing his thing, just killing monsters and stuff and looting during the day like a lot of other people. And that was another thing I thought about in this episode, which we actually did get to see. But I was thinking like I'd like to see some of the looting stuff going on because with it being sort of really crazy during the night, people know, hey, we gotta get this stuff during the daytime. And I wanted to see that. I didn't want them to spend an entire episode on it or anything like that because I thought it would kind of waste, main story time. And I think they did it really well. We didn't see a ton of it. Really, we only saw like two people, and I guess technically three people, and that's it. But I'd like to see more of the chaos where we do actually get to see people interact with each other in sort of disastrous ways, which we sort of got when F and the gang were like driving in the van past a bunch of people and you saw two guys arguing. So I'd like to see more of that in like the sub story of one of the episodes where the same thing sort of happens where some characters leave at night and then someone else has to leave during the day, or they just go to different places. So that would be really cool, like get resources or stuff like that, which they might do. I don't know if they'll actually do that because we only have like 2 episodes left, I think. But they could do that just because that's a normal thing. They will at some point need resources. But it was cool to kind of get that. And then, of course, the main story was definitely really cool in this episode where they all go into the sewer. F gets tricked by the master and he runs into him. And we got like a real close up look in this one, which I thought was pretty interesting. The voice was really interesting too, like his eyes and just all the detail in his face was just really, really something. So it was cool to get that, and like the two, I guess, main character, like the main bad guy and sort of the main good guy, they came head to head in this episode, and they almost had him, but of course he escaped, and so that's gonna carry on until whenever they defeat him, which will be seasons from now, who knows. But I definitely enjoyed the main story, them going under, the little arguments they had, like F and Fed, like when the train came past and stuff like that. But it was definitely a good episode, and I love the ending. I love the way it ended with them having to pull the old guy back because he had his moment and it didn't work. And I don't know what the master did to him. I definitely want answers on that because he like said something and it was like he just had like buzzing in his ear and he couldn't really do anything. And of course, he skipped right over that as soon as the master was gone. He was like, I had him. And it was like, you were done. Like, he was definitely out of commission because he couldn't move. So I definitely want answers on that. But I love the ending. Like, he was just so direct. He was like, this was the only chance I've had in decades. And he was just going for it. He had, like, tunnel vision to kill the master. And so I thought it was really cool that they had to just pull him back. He was going to go into, like, just a minefield of monsters, and just he didn't give a crap, and he definitely would have died there. So I thought it was a very cool way to end the episode. I definitely loved it. Like I said, overall it was really a great episode this week. I'm excited for the next one. We are getting a season 2. I looked that up. This was actually announced like a long time ago. I just didn't know. But we are getting a season 2, so if you really like the show, we will be getting a season 2. So I'm excited for that, to see how this season ends, and then it's good to know that we're gonna have a season 2 and it won't just be like no more story. Although it is based off a comic book, if you guys haven't figured that out yet and seen the pictures and stuff, it is based off a book, so you can technically buy it. But it's cool to see that the show is getting a second season. But I love the episode. Of course, comment below, let me know what you guys thought about it, your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and what do you guys think is going to be happening next week. I mean, we've had sort of a just crappy ending for the characters. They almost had the main villain, and then of course he escaped. So with that happening, I think the big question is what's going to happen to the group itself, because the older guy, he's kind of just mad at everybody. He was mad at Fett for using like the ultraviolet thing because it scared the master off, and of course he was Fett was mad at F because F ran off and got tricked, and that's why they had to do that. So what do you guys think is really going to happen to the group dynamics and the rest of this season? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.